and Randy especially, since I was here at a funeral not too many weeks ago for Lynn's mom, and Dale came up to me, and I always thought of Dale as your PA guy, or the PA man. But he said to me after the service, would you be interested in speaking sometime? And I thought he was kidding, because PA men typically don't invite people to preach in a church. So I said, I don't know, I'll think about it, which I think I surprised him when I gave him that answer. And then later on, we began to email each other, and then I called a friend, Randy Coons, who I've remained in good contact with his wife and family. And he said, well, I'm the one who put him up to that. I'm on the committee that's searching pulpit supply. I said, oh, okay. And I realized this was a little more serious. I better think about this a little more. As I did, things began to fall into place for the freedom to say yes. And I don't know what Dale or Randy's reaction was when they finally got, everything is email nowadays. You don't call people, you don't write letters, you don't visit in person. Everything's done on a computer, so I sent Dale an email and said, I'll do it. I would love to probably have seen his face when he read that email, but I'm sure he was pleased. He's extended the invitation. Now, this is probably a first for you. Those of you who are part of First Alliance, either back in the day when my family and I were here, until the fall of '96, I think it was. And if you're new, then we've not had the privilege of meeting, and thank you for the privilege to share with you today from the Word. But I'm sure this is a first. You write it down in the annals of the church history. The church is now 12 years old, as best as I can recollect, because the year I left, we were in our 100th. And it's been 12 years since I've been here, so my math's still pretty good. I guarantee you, you've never had a car salesman preach to you on a Sunday morning. So that's a first. Write it down for the next 100-year book. You might want to go back on 3/29 of 209 and say, there was a car salesman who preached to us. Now, there's a certain stigma with that career, and we won't get into that today, but it's been 12 and a half years since I shared in any manner like this. A lot's changed in our world in those 12 and a half years. I just got a few things. The first thing is that 12 and a half years ago, I didn't need glasses to read. And so you'll be seeing me cheat every once in a while, especially when I have to read the scriptures, because I can't see a thing. I can see your face, but print is gone. I'm happy at about 45 and 52. The last 7 years, it's progressively getting worse. I'm far too vain to go to the doctor and get regular glasses, so I just keep buying the ones at Sam's Club. The higher and higher you go in magnification. I was 50 pounds lighter 12 and a half years ago. And some of you have the same issue. So don't laugh at me, because if you look at yourself in the mirror later, you realize you're a little more swollen and puffed up than you used to be. The trestle era had not begun the last time I preached. Some of you are passionate about Ohio State. And you know what I'm talking about. The trestle era was still the Cooper era. With a lot of frustration, up and down with all that, and your hearts rise and sink with games in the fall. But there was no such thing as the trestle era the last time I was here. All 5 of my children were still living at home 12 and a half years ago. And one daughter, who they're all here today except Bobby. Bobby is in Iraq serving the U.S. Army in the war. He's in a city called Mosul. And he called last night and said, Dad, you got to get a copy of whatever you're saying. I want it. And my sergeant wants it. So Dale's going to work on cassette taping to CD taping, and then it'll get sent overseas. And some of it's being taped, I think, on telephones, if I'm not mistaken, my kids are. But the kids were all at home back in those days. And one said to me this morning, because I laid tremendous guilt on all 4 of them, you better be here. Sarah worked all night at the ER at Riverside. She hasn't slept yet. She started working last night. She came to church. Grace works at 11:30. She's going to be late for her job today. But anyway, they're all here today, and I'm really appreciative of that. I wasn't a grandfather 12 and a half years ago. I got my 2 grandsons here as well. They came up from Nashville. And that's a whole other game that I can appreciate when somebody used to tell me those things, how great it was to be a grandparent. I had no idea what a 401k was 12 and a half years ago. I didn't really care. I didn't have any money. Church paid us weekly, both WEEK and WEAK, so we got by. And God always met the need. But let me tell you, some of you, I share this pain with you today, about 50 to 60% of your 401k is gone ever since this little downturn, recession / depression, whatever you want to call it. It's gone. I care about 401k a whole lot right now, because it means I'm going to have to work a lot longer. Maybe you will also, or maybe not. I had just returned from my first missions trip to Mexico with Lee Darby. We went down to Monterrey. 40 some odd of us, the nickels nodding their heads. I remember that was the best 8 or 9 days of slave labor I ever enjoyed. I loved it. It was a fantastic experience. But that was 12 and a half years ago. I've been in Mexico 9 other times since then, but always as a tourist, enjoying Cancun. Never back as a worker like we went. Bill Clinton was our president, just to kind of scratch your memory, and doing a heck of a job, I might add. Not morally, but politically, we were in good days those days. 9/11 was just a date on the calendar. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm from New York. You remember that. Maybe you don't, but that's my hometown. And 9/11 was just a date. September 11th. Big deal. But when someone says 9/11 these days, now they know it's a significant fact in the history of our country, in the history of the world. When you talk about 9/11, all these things come to your mind. Emotions well up. So a lot's changed. Hopefully you can agree with me. As you go look back, even from last year or last week or 10 years ago, things have changed. But I want to share with you today 3 things. The predominant thing is that God never changes. In all those changes, God has not changed. We're going to talk about the theme of God being faithful. That God is still on the throne, even though our world changes, even though our lives change, our family changes. We sang all these fantastic songs about salvation, and I was in tears most of the time. And then you guys pull out How Great Thou Art at the end, and I'm about losing it, because that's one of my all-time favorite songs. God is never going to change. No matter how the world changes, no matter how your life changes, no matter how your church changes, God will never change. He still loves people. He wants them to live for Him. People are always going to be needy and in need of a God who will save them. Salvation has never changed. The rules, the regulations, the stipends of salvation will never change. People have to bow their knee to Jesus Christ, accept Him as their Savior, ask Him to forgive them of their sins. That's never going to change. It's been that way all along.